Good morning, everybody. We have a great show, as always, coming your way today on Gojo and Golic. Here's a little rundown of what we have to look forward to. So we're going to get into a Thursday night football preview. Giants-Cowboys, Malik Neighbors getting a little chippy on the interwebs. We'll talk about all that. And Mike Tomlin, been non-committal on who his QB1 is. Do I smell a quarterback controversy? Yes, we love it. And Caitlin Clark, her season has come to an end, so we will go back and look at her rookie numbers. Absolutely incredible stuff. Lots of fun guests coming up. All that and more on Gojo and Golic.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Gojo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., and Jesse Cofield here. We got a great show for you. As always, download, subscribe, rate, review it, leave us a 5-star rating, and check us out here live Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKings Network. As Jesse mentioned, plenty of fun guests. Mad Dog Russo going to join us in the second hour of the show, which should definitely be entertaining. Nicole Arbach going to stop by as we try and encapsulate everything that's gone on in college football this week, Dad. Been a wild one between all of the conference realignment news that we've gotten around the Mountain West and the new Pac-12 that got some answers finalized yesterday. We've still got the remnants of the situation with Matthew Sluka, the UNLV quarterback, who announced that he was going to use his red shirt because of a discrepancy over payment he believed he was owed as the quarterback for that team, which, you know, we got so early in the show yesterday, very little information. Now more appears to have come out about that, so we'll have plenty of time to dive into the latest on that with her. And oh, by the way, we got a football game coming up tonight. Yeah. Not just any football game coming up tonight. A division matchup between the Cowboys and the New York Giants. Two teams so full of anxiety during this young season. The New York Giants coming off a win, however, a little bit of feel good around there as Malik Neighbors has been the star of the show for that team. Then on the other side, Dad, we talked about the Cincinnati Bengals and what they have coming up ahead of them this weekend. A matchup with Andy Dalton, the former quarterback of this franchise, that seems to be a referendum on whether or not we think they're going to be able to accomplish anything this season. got a similar loser leaves town feel tonight for the Cowboys heading in and taking on this New York Giants team, where if they can't get it done against this squad that we expected to be bottom dwellers in their own division in the NFC East, boy, oh boy, it's going to be hard to believe the Cowboys are actually going to be capable of accomplishing anything this season.
Yeah, it's what I had thought from the beginning of the season, that they would take that step back, but you would have thought they would lean on, obviously, the Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb connection and their defense. But the defense is getting beat the worst way a defense can get beat. As a former D lineman, this is something I know very well. When you get your butt run on, that is the worst way that you can be beaten. And that's what's happening to them right now. They're getting run on. And it's disheartening. It's mentally exhausting when you get run on. And to me, it's the worst way to get beat. And that's the way they're get beating. And it's not like you're grabbing somebody off the couch to change it. It's going to come down to execution. It's going to come down to maybe putting more in the box. Maybe you try some run stunts. Maybe you're kind of scratching your head to say, this is the roster that we have. How can I scheme it to help stop the run? But the bottom line is you still got to have the man beat the man in front of him and get off the block and make the tackle.
Yeah, unfortunately, the bad news for the Dallas Cowboys is they've been one of the worst defenses in the NFL with loaded boxes, still getting run on. It's actually like teams hunt that more, Dad. I looked at the matchup last week with the Baltimore Ravens, who, remember, week 1 against the Kansas City Chiefs, spread things out and ran more 2 tight end personnel with 1 running back. The second week, they run more 2 running back with 1 tight end personnel against Las Vegas. And then last week against the Dallas Cowboys, the Ravens went 22 personnel, so they put 2 backs in there, Derrick Henry and Big Patrick Ricard, and then both their tight ends on the field, because they seem to want to invite Dallas putting more guys around the line of scrimmage because the bodies are too light, because they don't have enough people actually built to stop the run. So it seems like they're courting that right now, which makes this a really interesting matchup for this team in New York of how they're going to go about trying to exploit this, and what that again tells us about what people think about Dallas on defense.
Well, the one thing I'll say is, do not mistake the Giants' running game for Baltimore's running game. There is a massive difference in running games. With size of back to Devin Singletary, to Derrick Henry, to production of over 200 yards rushing that Baltimore has a game. So that's number one. And number two, the Giants are kind of a right-handed running team. Last game in their that the Giants won last week, Devin Singletary ran it 16 times, I believe, and 11 were to the right. He gained 0 yards to the left. On his 5 carries to the left, he gained nothing. On his 11 carries to the right, he gained all his 65 yards. So they're kind of right-handed in the running game, and they're not the devastating rushing attack Baltimore is. I'm just looking for any positives for either team in this, and after Dallas just got thumped on the run, I would not expect the Giants to thump them on the run, certainly not as bad as Baltimore did.
No, but the thing that the Giants do have that Baltimore also did have, and remember we did this with the miles per hour stats a couple years ago where we all realized, Daniel Jones, Vroom go fast. They got the mobile quarterback. They can involve Daniel Jones in the run game in a way that certainly affected them when it was the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson, a very different type of rusher than Daniel Jones, but Daniel's still a value add in that, and that's something I think they're going to have to try and exploit against this Dallas defense, because the only way you can let Dallas in the game is if you get in long downs and distances, right? Micah Parsons has been so infinitely frustrated. You've seen it on the sideline in the most recent game because, like you said, they're doing it personal. It's right now getting beaten the most personal way possible for these defenders. And you saw Micah Parsons, of all people, wearing it. You saw the chirping back and forth between teammates over the last week or so. And so the best way to remedy that is if you get in 3rd and long and all of a sudden those guys can actually do what they're paid to do, then life can get pretty hard. So that's going to be the interesting part, Dad, because quite honestly, neither of these teams very good run defenses. We've talked about the Giants front four and the pressure that they can get in the pass game, but nothing nothing about them. Both these teams lead the NFL in yards after contact allowed per rush. Both of these teams are tied for the lead in the NFL in explosive run plays allowed on the season in 17. So for Dallas, this also represents an opportunity for their struggling run game to maybe try and get just enough traction to complement what Dak Prescott we know is capable of in the pass game. It took a while to get going, but we saw you left the window open a little bit last week against Baltimore, and all of a sudden Dak Prescott was ready to throw that thing through the keyhole.
Yeah. And I think also you mentioned the yards after the catch. It's with the Giants. It's because a lot of that it's the short passing games, and we were going to talk about the lack of touchdowns, especially passing touchdowns in the league. It's because the ball's going shorter. I mean, I think this stat says it all. Wan'Dale Robinson, 22 of his 24 targets have been under 10 yards. That's tied for the league lead with Amon-Ra St. Brown, Rashee Rice, and his teammate Malik Neighbors. So both wide receivers, most of their routes are under 10 yards. They're those slant routes, the hitch routes, and they're trying to get yards after the catch. And if Daniel Jones starts getting pressure, he can run. But that's kind of emblematic, I think, around the league. You are seeing the shorter passes, the hitches, the slants, the crossing routes that are short crossing routes where defenders are trying to pick one another off. There's not a lot of downfield goes. Occasionally there is. We've seen Malik Neighbors catch a couple of those, but for the most part, they're all shorter passes.
Yep, we've seen the league-wide trends going around here, but you mentioned the name I want to talk about. Malik Neighbors has been incredible so far to start this season, and in the ultimate version of people don't forget, especially when it comes to the mind of NFL defensive backs. Jesse, we've gone all the way back to this summer in the archives to find the spot where Malik Neighbors actually said enough of a thing, because Malik Neighbors does seem like a somewhat respectful young man in the right circumstances. I don't know if you saw the clip from the other day from them in the Browns game where he's getting up after a play and Myles Garrett, the gigantic space alien of a human being, walks over to him with all the bass in his voice and gives Malik Neighbors a compliment, to which Malik responds, "Thank you, you too, sir," on the field with another grown man in the NFL game. So there's that on one side, Jesse, and then what we saw this summer on the other side.
Yeah, so if you take us back to the summer, Malik Neighbors was asked which DB he's most looking forward to going against this season, and he said Trevon Diggs, okay? So which prompted Diggs to tweet this on June 18th. He tweeted, right here, as you can see, Giants been getting belt for some years now, okay? So we have a little bit chippy here on the Twitterverse, and then Neighbors was asked about this situation and wasn't into the trash talk before the game. So this was from the other day.
There's been a lot of back and forth between you and Diggs. You looking forward to this matchup once and for all?
I mean, it is what it is, but I don't want to talk about it. I mean, it's game time now.
Do you know Diggs?
No, personally, no, I don't.
What's that even about?
I mean, it is what it is. Like I said, I don't want to talk about it.
Just pleading the fifth on that one. Don't want to talk about it. That happened over the summer. I'm a different man than I was then. And the matchup is finally here. And we talked a little bit about it, but like Malik Neighbors has been amazing so far. So he might be out here ready to back it up.
And I'm glad he took the high road there. You know me in locker room talk. I will always stay old school on that, even though it's not the great thing to talk about when somebody shoots their mouth off. And I'm glad Malik Neighbors didn't do that. But as far as a matchup, Mike, I mean, I don't know how much of a matchup that you'll get. Trevon Diggs stays on the right side 82% of the time. Kalen Carson stays on the left side 88% of the time. Now, Malik Neighbors goes in motion a ton to help free him up. But I don't know if there's going to be this Trevon Diggs is sticking on Malik Neighbors. That hasn't been done. He stays on right. Carson stays on left pretty much, the whole time.
Yep, but at least for Malik Neighbors, and we'll see. Maybe they go against Kalen Carson, who got, a couple of big plays thrown on him against the Baltimore Ravens. Maybe they attack that matchup, but the split for Malik Neighbors so far has been pretty even through right and left in terms of him on the formation. So while the Giants' rushing attack seems a little bit right-handed, or what you were talking about before, Malik Neighbors' usage has been pretty ambidextrous, and so we'll probably get some opportunities for this, Dad. I'm you know, I appreciate you're not as the former player and not wanting to see that get out. I am a bleep stirrer and now someone that just gets to watch. So I would love to see, especially wide receivers and DBs, because we know it's not going to come to blows all that often between the two. It's very rare that we get the Andre Johnson, Cortland Finnegan situation, although it is beautiful when it arrives. But I think for these two, it's just more Malik Neighbors right now, statistical leader near the top of a lot of categories receiving in the NFL, and a guy who almost immediately, the athleticism that jumped off the page for him at LSU has translated. He has the bulk of this team's target share right now. He's been targeted on a league high 37 of his 106 routes so far this season, and he is third. He's been targeted on a third of his routes. So he's basically the sun and the moon for the Giants. Everything they do in the passing game is built off him, and it shows with how often they put him in motion, how often they're trying to find him on matchups. And so, Dad, for this Giants team going into this game, Dallas is understandably a 6-point favorite in this game, and I do still think has what it takes to go in here and beat this Giants team. I just don't know if I can count on this Giants offensive line that has had a bunch of guys, including Andrew Thomas at times, giving up more in terms of pressures than we expected from him. But the rest of that line, that was unfortunately what we kind of had built into the model for this year. That group against the Dallas defensive front that's looking for a get-right game, I'm banking more on Dallas's defense and their ability to overcome in this game and get the job done than I am all of a sudden. This Giants, listen, give the Giants credit. Got the win last week against the Cleveland Browns team that people came into the season excited about. And I do think Dallas, that's the common thread between these two teams, right? Dallas on the opening weekend plays this Cleveland Browns team. It's the Tom Brady game, and we see Dallas win it. And people like me who thought the Dallas Cowboys might be okay this season looked at that as, maybe a result indicative of what's to come. And maybe now, a few weeks in, realizing, hey, the Cleveland Browns might not be a very good football team, especially if there's any real injuries with Myles Garrett's feet. Maybe that win doesn't count for quite as much in either way. And so leveling things out a little bit, despite the joy that win brought both franchises, I do just think in terms of the parts that we know are there, this Dallas Cowboys team, I would count on them being able to get into a few more third and long situations and affect the game than I would this Giants offense all of a sudden looking like the second coming of the greatest show on turf.
I completely agree. I mean, as I said, the Giants' rushing attack is not Baltimore's rushing attack. So basically what the Cowboys have to do is stop the rushing attack or slow it down, but stop the short passes, make the tackles. This is where you give the short pass up and you make the tackles. We talked about Malik Neighbors catching hitches or Wan'Dale Robinson and Malik on slants. You keep the ball in front of you. And you make the tackle, don't give them yards after the catch. You look at the receivers for the Giants. Malik Neighbors is just under 12 yards a catch because he's doing well of yards after the catch. But nobody else of significant reception value is over 10 yards, averaging over 10 yards. So they're all short routes. So this is about tackling for the Cowboys. This is about tackling on hitch routes, tackling on short slant routes, tackling on crossing routes, keeping the ball in front of you. They throw short passes, make the tackle, put them in third and long, and I think they'll beat the Giants because I don't think the Giants can handle that well. And then, you have your Dak Prescott to CeeDee Lamb connection, which is really the only offense because Dallas doesn't have a running game to talk about. But I think Dallas's defense can be more effective in this game. I think put it this way, Dallas's defense, I think, will be the most effective side of the ball for either team in this game.
Yeah, I think that is I don't know. I mean, the Dallas offense is the unit I trust the most in this game. Like, if we're going to rank that in terms of that, I trust the Dallas offense in the passing attack led by Dak Prescott to go out there and be more effective than anything in this game. But this does represent an opportunity for the Dallas defense to get right. For the Dallas defense, also, we talked about Kalen Carson doubtful for this game. So also something to factor into there as well. But Dad, I would say the Dallas offense is the most trustworthy unit that's going into this game. But the Dallas defense has the best chance to get right.
So if Dallas were to lose this game 4 games into the season, would you say they're not making the playoffs? They'd be 1-3.
I would say probably not, and I would say as much as anything else, if they lose this game, to me, that's not a team that, even if they somehow manage to get into the playoffs, it's meaningless at that point, because if you can't beat the Giants in their form this year as they're in some transition and trying to figure out if the quarterback of their future is on the roster and all the things there, that's just not a team that I think was built to succeed in the way that Dallas should have been this season. So yes, I would have serious doubts about their ability to do any. I mean, I already do right now. This is a team that coming into the season, we don't believe that they can win once they get to the playoffs. So what does getting there even count for you, even if I believe they could? But yeah, if they lose this game, I am probably going to stick a fork in the Cowboys at this point.
Yeah, next week they play this. Week 5 they play the Steelers. Week 6 they play the Lions. Then they have a bye, and then they take on the 49ers, albeit a beat-up 49ers team. But that's a few weeks from now. We'll see if they have any of their guys back from a health situation.
So, Dad, Cowboys -6. Is that too many points for you? Would you pick the Cowboys and the points? How do you feel here?
That feels like too many points. It just does. I don't think I can give the points here. I don't think I can give the points. I'll take Dallas to win, though.
All right, so Dad's taking the Giants +6, but Dallas to win. I'm going to go Dallas in the points on this one. I'm going to say if not now, then when for this team. I believed in them coming off the start of the year. That defense, if they're going to show any signs of life coming off the short week, let it be now. But we'll see there at Gojo and Golic on Twitter. You can obviously let us know how you feel there. Coming up next, though, as we look out towards the rest of the weekend's games, why Mike Tomlin continues to take the difficult road when it comes to his starting quarterback situation in Pittsburgh.
Because there's no need. I explained to you the variables of the week. It has not changed. He's going to walk in this building with that mindset tomorrow. And so there's no need to. Sometimes in this business, man, there's a myriad of complex decisions that need to be made. I've learned to make them when it's appropriate. and it's not necessary as we sit here right now. When Russ gets to an appropriate point of health and we have a decision to make, I'll make it and I'll announce it and I'll be really transparent about it. But until then, I don't care how many ways you guys ask me. I got no intentions of making a decision that's unnecessary at this juncture.
That is Pittsburgh Steelers coach Mike Tomlin continuing to seemingly complicate a quarterback situation in Pittsburgh that doesn't feel all that complicated right now, Dad. I always have this question, and for you and Jesse, the term myriad, I know you're not supposed to use a before it. It's just supposed to be myriad of things or anything like that. Does that word confuse you guys as much as it confuses me in terms of usage?
I didn't know you. Why aren't you supposed to say a beforehand?
Why aren't you supposed to say a myriad?
You could say a myriad of reasons. Why are you not allowed to do that?
Or no, like there's something, you're not supposed to use something either before or after it. Maybe it's supposed to be a myriad reasons instead of a myriad of reasons. I feel like there's some sort of weird hitch in myriad's giddy up. Jesse, maybe you can do some research on that while we try and get to the bottom of what Mike Tomlin's talking about here on the computer over there.
Yeah. Yes. I see Jesse doing that.
The cat? Okay, yeah. I'm on it. Hold on.
In terms of my confusion about things, though, Dad, how confusing has this been for you with Mike Tomlin? Like, I hear asked again, if at this point in the season, Justin Fields was the starter for this team. After all summer, we heard about how it was Russell Wilson's team and nothing was going to change that. And then we get to camp and we get the calf injury. So why do you see him continuing to take this tact when it comes to the quarterback situation in Pittsburgh?
Well, I think maybe he doesn't want to get himself into a bind if Justin starts to struggle. We talked about before we came back on air. The teams they beat, Atlanta, well, we thought Atlanta was going to be maybe better than they were. The Broncos and the Chargers with a gimpy Justin Herbert. So you look at their schedule so far, which you had mentioned to me in before we came back, is really backloaded. So maybe he doesn't want to get himself into a Justin Fields as a starter and then they start playing better teams and Justin Fields starts to struggle. Because, listen, I think Justin Fields is going to be a heck of a pro quarterback. I understand why Chicago did what they did with the turnovers, but I'm rooting for all players. But the way Justin Fields all of a sudden had no surrounding help in Chicago and he leaves and they get Caleb Williams a ton of surrounding help, he had to be scratching his head. He has 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. He's rushing for a little over 3 yards a carry. I mean, he's not turning the ball over at the rate he turned it over in Chicago. I'll give him that. But this has really been a team effort, 3-0, and he's the trigger guy, and he's leading the way, so you have to give him credit for that. But I'm wondering, both sides, there doesn't have to be a myriad of complex decisions sometimes. Sometimes it's just right in front of you. This guy has been the quarterback, and you're 3-0, and he's playing well enough to keep the job, so just name him the starter. The other side is, well, it's still early in the season. What if he slides back a little bit, or if he starts turning the ball over after I name him the starter, and then I have to bench him and bring in Russell Wilson? I think that's what makes it complex decision-making for Mike Tomlin, trying to think of all those different variables.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that's not quite like the Streisand effect for me, but it's close where, like, because Mike Tomlin keeps making the nature of starting quarterback on this team a thing, more people keep asking about it, and he keeps giving these answers like this. Because I'm with you, Dad. I can understand maybe not wanting to box yourself in at this point, but I also don't see what the harm is in saying, hey, yeah, Justin Fields is our starting quarterback right now, and if we have to reevaluate that at some point during the season as Russ gets healthy, we will. Maybe that's essentially what he's saying, but it's also just kind of a weird quarterback situation in general in Pittsburgh. I think when you brought both of these players over this summer at the price that you brought them over at and at the points in their career you brought them over at, this was just sort of the weirdness you signed up for. And I think your point's well served. Like, at this point, Russell Wilson in his career, fine quarterback. We saw last year in Denver. You can still get good things out of Russell Wilson. And even for Justin Fields, for all the talent we talk about, Justin Fields, I think he can be a fine player in this league going forward. I don't think we're ever going to see Justin Fields as someone's, well sought after, incredibly, like it would be a Baker Mayfield turn would have to be what it is for Justin Fields at this point in his career, right? You would need to see something that feels unlikely at a different stop at this point in his career. He's talented enough to do it, and we're watching him maybe slowly put that together. But all that is to say, neither one of these quarterbacks still at this point seems heads or tails above the other. And so if you're Pittsburgh, you want to leave the options open for whatever happens going forward. But the bottom line for this team, Dad, and you pointed it out, is that's only going to go so far. Now, this last week, I thought Justin took a big step forward in all the areas of the field this offense accessed in the way that he's been throwing the football. But this team is still going to win games. And I mean, you go back to the Atlanta game to start the season, basically won that game entirely because TJ Watt's a game wrecker, the likes of which the league rarely gets to see. So it's about the health defensively for this team. Offensively, they've already had some issues with that up front. Troy Fautanu, their rookie top pick out of Washington, it sounds like going to be down for the season, which is unfortunate. And so I think that this is just one of those things where, the quarterback is important. It's a position we lionize in pro sports, but in this Pittsburgh Steelers team, it really is closer to 1 of 11, 1 of 22 than when we pay lip service to that normally.
Yeah, I definitely think it's more of a team win, and especially on defense, holding the teams to 10, 6, and 10. I mean, that's defensive led. So the offense doesn't have to do much. It's an offense that we kind of say, hey, if you get in a shootout, you're in trouble. But with this defense, you're rarely going to get in a high-scoring shootout, though the defense could have 1 or 2 off games where that happens, and the onus is put on the offense, and then we'll see, can they score some points, which I don't know if they'll be able to score them in bunches, but their next 3 games, they're at the Colts, they're home to the Steelers on Sunday night, a game I'll get to call, and then they're at the Las Vegas Raiders. So you mentioned it. I mean, the back half of their schedule is really division heavy, and then throw in the Chiefs as well. They can, but they have a 2-game lead and a 3-game lead on all the other teams in their division right now.
They do, but to that point, like those other teams will play between now and then. Pittsburgh, if they're going to be competitive in this come the end of the season, is going to have to build up a good cushion now because, like you said, the back half of that schedule a little bit more of a juggernaut here, and some of those teams, like Kansas City that we talk about, we expect to be a lot better than now. Cincinnati is a team that I think some people might still believe can turn it around and get things figured out by then, as this team has traditionally been one of slow starts. So if you're Pittsburgh, that's going to be kind of paramount for this team, no matter who is under center playing quarterback. Speaking of quarterback questions, Jesse, let's take a look at the Green Bay Packers and what the latest is with Jordan Love and how close we are to seeing him back.
Yeah, some Packers fans might love this update, or maybe they won't. I'm not entirely positive. So he practiced on Wednesday, seemingly is on a trajectory to play in Sunday's game against the Vikings. Officially, he was limited participation on the first injury report of the week. However, he did agree that he was less limited than last week. So he hasn't ruled out playing this Sunday. Nobody has. But should he at this point? Should we be trying to get him back as early as Sunday? What do you guys think?
Yeah, Dad, I mean, this is kind of the way that we talk about rookie quarterbacks in terms of what we don't want to put them through. But if you're looking forward towards this weekend, hey, man, coming off that injury that he's at, is Brian Flores' defense really the first thing you want your, lower body injury compromised quarterback to necessarily have to handle? I don't know if that's the case. He would certainly give you the best chance at winning. Malik Willis has come in and performed really admirably. Matt LaFleur has coached his ass off, but I don't know if this defense is going to be the soft landing spot that it's necessarily been the last couple of weeks. So I think Jordan Love, you need to take the long-term view with him. As much as prioritizing this season matters, if your backup quarterback, Malik Willis, ends up going 2-1 during the stretch and you get another week of rest for Jordan Love so that he comes back and feels as close to 100% as possible, that is the route that I would go with a player who is this important to your franchise now.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, you saw him warming up last week before the Tennessee game, running around, looking like he felt good, and then they just, as he said, they decided, to at least wait at least another week. So he's just going to get better and better during the week. I too would be hesitant. Now, this is a home division game, and normally in division game, you think about a split during the season, but win your home game. This is a home game, and to be without him is a little, there's a little trepidation there, but Malik Willis has come in and done a good job. Again, it's not the Miami Dolphins situation. We're already looking for a different starter amongst 2 or 3 different quarterbacks until Tua is back. Malik Willis has done a good job. So I think the rest of the team and Matt LaFleur has faith in him to help lead this team. I would agree. Now, again, we'll wait and see. But if push comes to shove, it's still only the 4th game of the season. You don't want anything lingering. You don't want to put him out there before he's 100% and have him tweak it again and then be limping around on it. And every week, should he play? Should he not play? I think it's early enough in the season where you're just 1 game behind Minnesota right now, the possibility of falling a couple games behind here and losing a home division game. But I think I would take that chance early in the season to make sure he's 100%. And he may be 100% by this weekend, and he may play. But if there's any doubt, I would seriously consider holding him out, yes.
Yeah, I think looking at the long-term approach for these two teams is fascinating, right? Because if you're the Packers, you do need to prioritize the future. Jordan Love's a player that you believed you saw enough of last year in order to extend at the dollar amount that you extended him here. And on his best day, we saw last season, he can perform like a top 5 quarterback in this league. He has got that mix of certainly the coaching environment around there in Green Bay, but also the physical ability, the stuff that jumps off the page to a lot of us that makes digesting quarterback play feel a little bit easier. And on the other side, Dad, with the Vikings, you've got Sam Darnold, who I don't want to say I feel like there's a shelf life on this, but you do have a little more worry about if and when the other shoe starts to drop with a quarterback who started off the season as hot as Sam does. Do you not?
Yes, no, I agree with that. You at some point, water finds its level, right? And Sam Darnold has had issues with turnovers, and you just wonder when that will start to rear its head. Malik Willis, by the way, in 2 starts, has not turned the ball over. Now, he hasn't thrown for a ton of touchdowns. He threw for 2 touchdowns, but he is averaging, unlike Justin Fields, who we saw run like crazy in Chicago, Malik has run 12 times for 114 yards. He's averaging over 9 yards a carry. So he is proving dangerous with his legs. He hasn't fumbled the ball. He hasn't thrown an interception. So you bank on that. Though, again, as a backup, you wonder when the shoe may drop on him as well. There's a reason Tennessee got rid of him. Now, maybe because Will was a higher pick, obviously. I think that had a lot to do with it. But I'm with you on Sam Darnold. While it's been a great resurgence early in the season, it's always in the back of my mind. You wonder, is there going to start to be the turnovers again and start to see the Sam Darnold that was with the Jets? Now, maybe not. Maybe the grass is greener in Minnesota. Again, we always root for the player, but you have to wonder that.
I do think that this represents the best coaching matchup probably of the season so far between these two. When you talk about the early coach of the year candidates, I would say Kevin O'Connell and Matt LaFleur have been at or near the top of that list on any given week, given and it's easier. I shouldn't say easier for Matt, but it's more noticeable when you've got a backup quarterback and when you've got a roster with those guys at pivotal positions. We talked about that with Kyle Shanahan before, where the impetus and the onus really falls on the culture of your team and the strength of your play caller. And we've seen that on display for Green Bay in the last few weeks. But for the Minnesota Vikings, everything that Kevin O'Connell's done, the whole reason that people felt confident in Sam Darnold again to begin with in a year where your quarterback and J.J. McCarthy got injured before the season got started, who wasn't even working as the starter, was because Kevin O'Connell is looked at as that potent of a play caller. And, oh, by the way, a guy named Justin Jefferson lives here.
Yeah, that certainly is going to help their defense. Bottom line on this one, I think I agree with you, and Jordan Love probably shouldn't play with the defenses that Brian Flores dials up and the pressure. And I just mentioned Malik Willis running well. So why not let his healthy legs get him out of trouble if they're in trouble with some of the blitzes and some of the pressures that Minnesota throws at you.
Yep, Minnesota, I'm sure, going to try and cloud that decision-making and make life very difficult for that young man. Coming up next, though, let's talk about someone making life difficult for opposing defenses. Seahawks running back Zach Charbonnet going to join us to talk about their hot start next. All right, as the NFL season rolls along, we're delighted to be joined by Seahawks running back Zach Charbonnet, kind enough to give us some time coming off a 3-0 start for the season. So, Zach, good morning. Congratulations on the great start. What's the vibe like in the locker room right now?
Thank you. First and foremost, thanks for having me. I mean, it's been pretty good, but, we're kind of just on to the next one mentality. So, 24-hour rule, let that one go, and now we're just getting ready for Detroit.
I was going to say that the analysts may be surprised that you guys are undefeated, but I don't imagine you guys are too surprised. You guys expected this?
Yeah, I think it's just rewarded for the work that we put in this whole off season and continuing to just build off that each and every day. We continue to talk about stacking days and stacking wins. So that's kind of just the way we think. So we're not surprised by anything, and we're just ready to take on anything.
I think some of the surprise from the outside might come in the fact that we don't feel like we know a ton about your head coach in Mike Macdonald, who comes over after his time in Baltimore, a little bit more reserved on the outside. What's he like as the leader of your team inside the locker room?
Yeah, I would say, he's very poised, always in control. So, he's definitely a great coach to have around. I mean, love his philosophy, especially just on the defense side, just kind of that mindset that they have, and then getting the offense rolling and stuff like that. But, I think he's done a great job for the organization so far. And, we're just continuing to believe in him and just follow him and allow him to just lead us.
He comes from the defensive side of the ball. Your old coordinator, Ryan Grubb, made a couple of stops, a couple of hops, and now is in Seattle. What do you like about his offensive philosophy?
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of different shifts, motions. It gives us a lot of different tells pre-snap. So we have a good idea what's going to happen post-snap. So I think he's done a great job on that and game planning, especially stuff like that. So, I give a lot of credit to him and, just his offensive mind and his ability to just continue to adapt and grow from there. So I think he's doing a great job.
How different was that, or is this system from last year's system that you guys had to learn this year?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the tempo aspect of it was a lot different. Last year really didn't have any. So, this year that was definitely different. But, we've been able to utilize it as a weapon in game. So continue to just build off that and go from there.
Your quarterback, Geno Smith, certainly someone who was a big story a couple of years ago and has sort of settled in to being the guy there. What do you think the biggest strengths Geno brings to your guys' team are that have allowed him to fit so well into this new offense as well?
Yeah, I think it's just his approach every single day. He attacks every single day. I mean, he just continues to lead us. He keeps us all banded together, stuff like that. So, I think he's just done a great job in this system and continuing to grow in that aspect. And I mean, he's been having a couple great games. So, just looking for him to just continue to build off that and go from there. But, really excited what I'm seeing with him.
As you start to break down the Lions, your next opponent on Monday night, what do you see from their defense?
Yeah, still kind of in the process of going through that. But, I mean, I watched a couple games the last couple days. I mean, definitely love to play with the big up front and stuff like that. So, just being able to find ways to just be able to attack that in both the run and pass game, I think it's going to be real vital. So, that's kind of just what we're working on now.
How would you describe the personality of your guys' wide receiver room there? We see the body types on the outside. You guys couldn't have more different flavors of ice cream in that offensive skill room overall, you and Ken Walker in the backfield, but especially with a receiver room with a guy like DK Metcalf, all that imposing size, Tyler Lockett and JSN a little bit on the smaller side. Why does that group all work so well together?
Yeah, I mean, I think we just have a lot of great guys and a lot of different ways to just be able to attack defenses. I mean, DK definitely can go over the top at any point of the game. I mean, we got JSN able to just make dudes miss. Lockett, I mean, he's a savvy vet. He knows how to find spots and just get it open. So, we got Bobo and all them too, they just do a great job. So it's definitely a great room to have, and it kind of just helps out the run too, for sure.
Obviously, you lead the team in rushing, but also 10 receptions. I know the 3 wide receivers lead the way, but 10 receptions. How important is it to you that running back position? Everybody kind of talks about Christian McCaffrey running the ball, but able to catch the ball. For you to be able to be that versatile back in this offense.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, my mindset is always just do whatever is best for the team and, find ways to just make plays. So, that's just kind of what I pride myself on. And when the checkdowns and stuff are open in the pass game for the running back, like that's just something that I have to take advantage of. So continue to just grow on that aspect too is something that I think is vital.
We mentioned off the top, Mike Macdonald, your head coach, comes from the defensive side of the ball. That success in Baltimore. I've done a lot of interviews getting asked about you guys to start this season and the defensive improvement people have seen. Going up against this team all offseason in practice during training camp, I'm curious from your perspective as an offensive player that's faced them, what is it about that defense that's made it such an effective scheme at this level and about your guys in particular?
Yeah, definitely off season. It was definitely a hard defense to dissect. I mean, they're showing one way, they're bringing from another. There's a lot of misdirection for sure. So it's definitely hard to tell where they're coming from. So, it'll put offenses in certain checks, and it's just not there for them. So it's definitely a lot of stuff going on, and I think it's pretty hard to go against it.
I'm wondering when your first camp under Mike Macdonald, his first time head coach, and from the defensive side of the ball, was camp a little more filled with hitting this time around for you than your first year?
Yeah, I'd say we're definitely in pads. Definitely in pads more. Practices, the tempo, and everything was definitely a lot more physical. So I think it was a great aspect though for our team, and even now we're still continuing to build off that. So it was definitely a change, but it was definitely a great change.
It's certainly a change that's paid off so far. Again, an incredible start for you guys and one of the most competitive divisions in football, and you've played a huge role in that success. Zach, we appreciate all the time and insight, man. Best of luck the rest of the way this season, and hopefully we'll get a chance to catch up with you again down the road, all right?
Yeah, appreciate you guys.
Our thanks to Zach for stopping by, who's been, Dad, especially with some of the injuries to Kenneth Walker III, who, one of the most immensely talented backs in football. Seeing the way that Zach has picked up the load has been really helpful for a Seahawks offense that when you look at it, the rushing attack is a work in progress overall. That offensive line, specifically the guard play, has been a real struggle to start the season for this team. And for Ryan Grubb, who comes over from Washington, that was the one thing, as I talked to a lot of Seattle media in the lead up to this season, and the one area I was a bit concerned about because the receiver fit seemed so great, because the quarterback fit seemed so great, was, hey, by the way, that Washington offense we saw last year was awarded the award for the best offensive line in college football. And so far this season, we just haven't seen that. So we've seen Ryan Grubb and them trying to figure out, hey, what runs do these guys like? But having a guy that is as aggressive, downhill, and capable as Zach is, offsetting that, especially while Ken's out, has been huge to try and supplement something there so they can keep getting the ball. Because, Dad, that's the difficulty. It's hard to put two tight ends on the field when you've got DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett and Jackson Smith and Jigba out there that you want to get the ball to.
Yeah, and they take on the Lions in Detroit this week. So, as far as the running game, I mean the secondary of the Lions is where I think most teams will try and pick on it. It's basically a new secondary, and with the three you just mentioned receivers, I would imagine it would be more of a passing game for Seattle in this one.
Yeah, and really, it's, I think, the other side of the football that I'm fascinated to watch against that Lions team. Now, don't get me wrong, up front, stout run defense that we've seen for the Lions over the last few years, and certainly the matchup of whoever is going to try and block Aiden Hutchinson in this game.
Yeah.
If you're Seattle, you're hoping that's more Charles Cross than anybody else right now. Stone Forsythe been the one sitting in for Abraham Lucas on the right side of that O-line, but Charles Cross is your most consistent pass protector on that line, and so you're going to need him because Aiden Hutchinson's been an unholy wrecking ball for so much of this season. But, Dad, it's kind of emblematic of the bigger picture of the NFL that we've been talking about a lot over the last few weeks. You look, NFL teams averaging 21.4 points per game, the fifth straight year that the scoring average has declined since 2000, and the fewest points per game total since 2006. We know the passing yards are down across the league, and a lot of it you can kind of point to defenses similar to what Mike Macdonald is presenting defensively. That's become one of the schemes that is an offshoot of, hey, what Vic Fangio had run for years that had proliferated through with guys like Brandon Staley, to now making use. And we heard Mike Macdonald, there was great clips of him talking the other day about if you can defend the run out of two high looks, it unlocks so much for you as a team. That seems to be at the core of a lot of this.
If you can defend the run against too high, you win, is basically what the deal is. And I know we go back to Mel Kiper saying too high is ruining the game. It's not ruining the game. You have to be able to run. It's a chess match. You play one defense, you got to run something on offense that negates that, so you have to make them change their defense. So it's not ruining the game, but production is down. Offensively, production is down. Scoring is down. Moving down the field takes longer on the shorter routes. You're kicking more field goals than scoring touchdowns because as you get closer to the end zone, obviously you know this, Mike, the field shrinks, the coverage gets even tighter, and it's tougher to find the open receivers like it is in the middle of the field. It's just where we are now. I mean, defenses. I mean, it's when Buddy Ryan ran the 46 in Chicago, the 46 defense, and then we ran it in Philly. You know, it was a devastating defense until the offense figured out to run the edges, you know, at a more consistent basis. You figure things out. And with too high, it's not that hard to figure out. It is short passes, which unfortunately has led to less scoring, but it's being able to run the ball better, which should make running backs happy as hell because it may increase their value again. Who knows? But it's all an adjustment. It's all an adjustment. And the too high will not be taken away, like Mel said. They will not be outlawed. Safeties will not be required to only be a certain amount of distance from the ball. That will not happen. Offenses have to make defenses get out of their adjustment. It's who dictates to who. And right now, the too high defense is dictating to the offense what the offense needs to do. And the offense needs to break that trend.
Yep, and I think part of it, what Mike said is, hey, for a while it was, hey, we're going to go back in too high, and we don't really care about stopping the run all that much. Some of that was the concession of, hey, we think rushing the ball is so devalued, we'll give it up and we'll stop you in the red zone here. But now that's led to teams being so inefficient that the run game is actually capable of going out there and tipping the scales. So going to be fascinating there. Equally as fascinating, we had our crack research team on this during the break. Jesse, we got an answer on the myriad dilemma that we had talking about Mike Tomlin's press conference sound, did we not?
Oh, yeah. Hold on. I X'd out of that. Hold on. So basically, I will try to explain this as best I can. According to the AP style book, you are supposed to use the word myriad the same way that you would use 10,000. So you're not supposed to say of or a. So we would just say myriad of nope, can't say of. So how do we use it? Nope. I'm very confused.
A myriad reasons is how we'd use it.
A myriad reasons? That doesn't sound right.
So for Mike Tomlin's quote, it will be sometimes in this business, there's a myriad complex decisions that need to be made. And he said of, but that's how it would read. There's a myriad complex decisions. It just feels like a word is missing.
Yeah, it sounds wrong.
It feels like it's missing. I'll never listen. I was not a great writer. Punctuations and all that I'm bad at. And don't come at me, Twitter English majors or whatever. But I'm not going to be able to not say of after myriad.
Yeah,
I'm just not going to be able to do that.
There's no way. I won't be adopting
I'm not going to call him dad. Not even if there's a fire is how I feel about that after myriad. It just doesn't work for me there. I do like the idea that I didn't know that it was supposed to be a substitute or a proxy for 10,000. And my mind immediately just went to the Disturbed song. Like, oh, you do myriad fists in the air. This is a weird one for me. I don't remember a lot of grammatical rules. I'm very bad at that stuff here. The only one I remember is that if you've got two vowels separated by one consonant, the preceding vowel takes the long sound, and if there's two consonants in the middle, then it takes the short sound. That's all I got. That's my only party trick.
I have I before E, except after C.
Except sounding like A is a neighbor away.
Ah! See, some of that stuff's just percolating back there. It'll just come up in our subconscious.
Just wait. When you guys hit 60, 61, you'll forget all of that. You'll whatever is left in your head, you'll forget by then and just be a dumbass like me.
You know what? Coming up later in the show, we're going to talk about what could have been Diana Taurasi's final game last night, and my beef with ESPN's write-up trying to make Diana Taurasi's the beginning of her career sound like it was when the Model T was invented. We'll get to that, plus Nicole Arbach going to join us off the top of the next hour to talk a little college football. All right, welcome back to Gojo and Golic. Excited to get to Nicole Arbach in the next hour here to talk a little college football. But in the meantime, it's time for a little Better Yet heading into Thursday Night Football. Better Yet is presented by Larceny Wheated Bourbon. Lock in a win and seize tonight. Bardstown, Kentucky, 46% alcohol by volume. Think wisely, drink wisely. And looking at some props for tonight's game, Malik Neighbors has been all of the rage in New York. Looking at his receiving total tonight, 71.5 yards is the over-under, 6.5 catches. I'm much more inclined to go with the 6.5 catches. I think the volume will continue to come his way, leads that team in target share, and has a real good chance to continue that against a Cowboys defense that's going to be all focused on stopping the run. More from Nicole Arbach next on Gojo and Golic. Hour number 2 here at Gojo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Jesse Cofield. And we have a lot of very big existential questions in the world of college football right now. This week has been full of news around conference realignment, with the re-emerging Pac-12 and the Mountain West getting sorted out. We have all of the Matthew Sluka fallout from yesterday, the UNLV quarterback who is now exercising his red shirt because of money he believes he was owed and not paid. And all of that leads us to our next guest and our friend. She is the college football insider over at NBC Sports. You can hear her hosting on the radio for SiriusXM. You can catch her podcast, Rushing the Field, that comes out weekly with her and Joshua Perry. She is Nicole Arbach, and she joins us now. Nicole, good morning to you and your Pop-Tart costume. How are you doing?
I am doing just great, guys. I really hope you can see my little buddy.
Oh.
This is the official Pop-Tart mascot costume for Halloween. It was hand delivered to my apartment because they know how big a Pop-Tart bowl fan I am. It's not edible, so I did want to clarify that. But I put it on. It looks very close to the guy who stood up on top of the toaster and happily went to his death at the Pop-Tarts Bowl.
what's impressive is they gave you 2 because 2 Pop-Tarts come in a pack. I mean, that's attention to detail.
I was not expecting that, but yes, there are 2 in a pack. So my fiance Jeff was like, I guess we're going to be Pop-Tarts for Halloween this year.
Yes.
And I think it's a perfect Halloween costume. It actually keeps you kind of warm. You know, you're covering the upper body. Don't have to worry about your hair, any makeup that day. You can dress it up. You can dress it down depending on what pants you wear with it. So yeah, it looks like we'll be going as a pair of Pop-Tarts, strawberry Pop-Tarts to be specific.
So I have 2 questions. First, about the Pop-Tart itself. Do you toast them or eat them right out of the pack?
Okay, this is probably controversial. I mostly eat them out of the pack. I know that they're probably better toasted, but like my childhood experience was just grab and go. So I was much more of a non-toast, don't have time for it. I will say the one thing that I do that maybe is controversial, but I don't really eat the crust. I kind of break off the crust and I eat the middle with the filling inside, which probably it was an early indicator that I would eventually love Uncrustables and kind of live off of them as an adult.
So
that is true. The official food sponsor of everyone in sports media, especially people out on the site of games, is making sure you're hammering Uncrustables the entire time for sustenance, Dad.
So you're like a kid getting the crust cut off his PB&J sandwich, with taking the crust off the Pop-Tart. So the second question, you say you and your fiance are going to be Pop-Tarts for Halloween. You're going to go out somewhere. I see there's kind of a mesh area for the face. Can you have a drink with it? Are you going to be able to have a drink?
There we go.
Oh, okay.
Wow, they think of everything.
Yes, this is an adult costume. This is an adult Pop-Tart costume, guys. You have to think about this. This is for us. So they've thought of everything.
They truly have. Wow. All right. The Pop-Tart folks doing the Lord's work as one of the premier bowl games of this sport, and a bowl game that should be considered the national championship, but we know isn't, but I digress. So, Nicole, let's get to all of the news that we've had going on in the last few days here around the sport, and let's start with Matthew Sluka, what everyone was talking about yesterday, the UNLV quarterback who, according to the latest reporting that we've now gotten yesterday, and according to his agent, Marcus Cromartie, who came out, he said that Sluka was verbally promised a minimum of $100,000 by a UNLV assistant coach, later identified to be offensive coordinator Brennan Marion. If he transferred to the Rebels, the CEO of the collective there for UNLV came out and said that there was never a formal NIL offer to Matthew Sluka. So as you look at all of the facts coming out on both sides on this, it seems like everyone's been trying to get their position represented. What can we take away from this entire ordeal as a college football watching world?
Well, I think we're unfortunately going to continue to see situations like this. Now, we've seen a couple of lawsuits involving players who were not paid what they were contractually obligated from different collectives over the year. And it's important to remember this. Sometimes, or a lot of times, collectives are promising money that they have not yet raised. So they are signing a deal and then they are fundraising on behalf of it. So that part is not unusual. Obviously, there's other pieces here of like the collective saying that they were unaware entirely of this promise of $100,000. There's nothing in writing. There's a couple other issues here. But I think the general issues that we're seeing about, being promised something but not being owed, contractual questions, that's not going to get fixed until you have employment contracts and you have collective bargaining and you have protections on both sides, which then also give you legal recourse when someone does not fulfill their side of the bargain. Obviously, you could still have people who are not living up to what they said that they would in these contracts, but it simplifies a lot of things, and you would also be having a relationship directly between the school and the athlete instead of involving these collectives, which again, obviously a lot of times they're in lockstep with the coaches. They're trying to work with them to figure out who gets paid what, but that throws a wrench into the whole situation. So yes, I think right now we still don't know who exactly said what. It's a lot of he said at this point. But you can see how this type of situation can continue to happen, especially, again, you had an agent who wasn't registered in Nevada. You had a lot of different issues at play here, but you can see how players at the center of it can run into issues without protections, without contracts.
So I will lay the blame for this. I know the agent wasn't registered in Nevada, but instead of having 18 to 22-year-olds know the letter of the law, it's as simple as the agent would be, wouldn't you think, Nicole, get it in writing. And if it's not in writing, then tell your client, in this case, Sluka, don't trust it. If we can't get it in writing, don't trust it. So everybody kind of knows above the table what's going on.
Right. And there's also like an injunction. There was a lawsuit related to this last year or earlier this year where, you are able to talk to and negotiate with collectives before enrollment. Now, not everyone seems to know that. Based on some of the tweets that we saw from this agent, it made it seem like he did not think you could get anything in writing until enrollment. But also, there's definitely people who were erring on the side of caution with that. It was a little confusing, but still, the point stands. And it certainly stands once you enroll on campus and once you get going here. You can't come back to someone and say, hey, we're owed something when there was no written contract and you didn't get it in writing in the first place. And I would be very curious to see a paper trail. I've submitted a FOIA request. Hopefully we'll get more clarity about this. But, you have the collective, on the other hand, saying, hey, we never were involved in any sort of promise for $100,000. And we only first heard from this agent at the end of August. And he was talking about, hey, what can we do moving forward? So again, it's a lot of questions about what exactly went down in the order of events, but you're completely right. You absolutely always want everything in writing, and you want good representatives who understand the law and the rules negotiating your deals. And so there definitely seems to be amateur hour on multiple levels in this situation.
Nicole, how does UNLV come out of this looking? The reason this feels so big is because they're a team that right now at 3-0 has access to the playoff in theory based on the fact that the highest ranked Group of 5 conference champion gets a bid to the dance. So how does it make this program look at this critical juncture?
Well, I think that's the big question. That's probably why the story went so national, right? Was that they are undefeated, first time 3-0 in 40 years. It is going to be really interesting to see how they respond, of course, because, there was a team captain who quote tweeted something saying hey, QB1, here's our guy. And he was like, yes, let's go. It seemed like maybe there's a little more to the story about how the rest of the team is responding or feeling about what went down yesterday or over the last 48 hours. So that will be interesting. Also, I just want to say this, Sluka was not a huge part of their offense, from a passing standpoint. He wasn't very good. He's a scrambler. He certainly did stuff to help win them games, but it's not like they're going to be this totally different team. It's not like, the next quarterback can't lead this team to a potential college football playoff berth. They have a game against Syracuse next week, another big opportunity in the non-conference to boost their schedule, but it's really going to come down to winning the Mountain West, and that's still in front of them. So it's definitely too soon to say this is going to cost them, the rest of their season. They still have 2/3 of that to go. But it's going to be really interesting to see coming out of a situation that is unprecedented. Although we are seeing other players shut it down and trying to redshirt the rest of the year, like Bear Alexander at USC, it's going to be interesting to see how the team handles it around him. And when they start talking after this game against Fresno State, what they feel about something like this. Because again, a lot of people, this is kind of like a perfect storyline because any angle you can take, if you think NIL is ruining the sport, you can say that. If you think that this player is selfish because he's trying to get money he believes he's owed, go ahead. It's an unpopular take, but go ahead and make that point. And then other people can talk about employment contracts. So my point is there will be people who probably feel that those teammates are maybe better off without him, or what this type of dynamic of what am I owed, what am I not owed, can do to a team. So I'm fascinated by this. I do not think it's going to hurt them here overall, because again, we'll see what they have from a quarterback standpoint moving forward, but he was not a huge part of the passing game. And I think that we'll continue to see them evolve, and they've got 2/3 of the season to go.
And to put a bow on you, we all mentioned Bear Alexander. For those that don't know, he went to Georgia, transferred to USC, was a starter last year. Wasn't around for spring when they had a new defensive coordinator, was a little behind, has only played hasn't started a game this year, has averaged about 21 plays per game. So he is redshirting for a different reason. It's not about money. It's about playing time, that he's going to go somewhere else.
Yeah, so Bears' situation certainly a little bit different and more emblematic to Nicole's point of what we're seeing larger across the sport. Nicole, while we're talking about UNLV, also worth noting the other day we had some news about their school future come down as it was announced UNLV and Air Force have decided to remain with the Mountain West. So where are we at in terms of the current power struggle jockeying for teams between the newly emerged version of the Pac-12 and the Mountain West Conference?
Yeah, the way I've been kind of referring to it is like there's two Mountain Wests, right? Because you're talking about the same schools that basically made up the Mountain West before. You're just adding Oregon, State, Washington State. So yeah, we're actually still waiting for the official word. I was able to report last night, as were others, that they are expected to stay, but there needs to be a step at some point today of people getting that in writing, as we were talking about that being so important, and sort of binding each other to each other, and to the league moving forward. They also still are going to need another member. We all know that 8 is the magic number for minimum requirements to be a conference, so they will be at 7. So again, you're still going to have another step that needs to happen, but fending off the American, particularly for Air Force, fending off the Pac-12, which is trying to essentially just like a death knell here for the Mountain West. That's going to be huge. If this actually does stabilize the conference and everyone does sign on to stay together, that's a big win for the Mountain West and their commissioner, Gloria Navarez, who has just been in a battle, right, for the last few weeks. But yeah, ultimately to me, these are two very similar leagues that all the sense in the world would say just to merge. But we're looking at a scenario with over $100 million potentially at stake to try to get rid of a couple of teams, try to abandon a couple teams at the bottom of the Mountain West for the schools that left, and then just a battle about trading places, which to me is musical chairs with insane exit and penalty fees. And now a lawsuit as the Pac-12 is trying to sue the Mountain West for poaching penalties that they signed as part of their contract for a scheduling agreement. So it's wild, you guys. I hate that this is happening in season, but like this is maybe the craziest chapter of this round of realignment.
It truly is. And to your point, I thought we were done all having to be amateur lawyers now that footballs were actually getting kicked off and games were getting played. But thankfully, Nicole, we have smart people like you with Pop-Tarts backing them up to help us sort through all of this and get to the answers here. Again, guys, check her out, College Football Insider over at NBC Sports, and doing a great job covering the game on so many different platforms. Nicole, you're the best. We can't wait to see you and your fiance out on Halloween. I'd imagine the pictures will be all over the timeline.
Yep, can't wait. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Nicole.
Thanks, buddy.
What a great costume, Mike. The Pop-Tart. I mean, it's very, very easy, right? Very easy to put on. I mean, very simple. As Nicole showed, you have the mesh face part that you could lift so you can have a drink. It has it all. You have the mobility of your legs aren't in what's the word I'm looking
like the
for?
idea of what Nicole said is you can dress it up or dress it down. Like, what are the pair of dressy pants? I want to see the dressed up version, like cocktail hour Pop-Tart costume.
Well, I don't like what you brought up yesterday of sexing it up. I mean, what is that? I mean, what
I'm going to be walking around. I'll have the little like garter on with the Pop-Tart look there. Make it nasty. Coming up next, what is Christopher Mad Dog Russo going to be for Halloween? We find out on Gojo and Golic. All right, welcome back to Gojo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr. Pumped for our next guest here. Thank you to Nicole Auerbach, who joined us in the prior segment to talk a little college football. But now we've got Doggy in the house, Christopher Mad Dog Russo, who, by the way, recently signed a new 3-year extension to remain the face of Mad Dog Sports Radio on SXM. You can check out Mad Dog Unleashed, 3 p.m. Eastern on weekdays, as well as High Heat on MLB Network. First take, Doggy, they're working you to death, man. How you doing?
They sure do. But I got the Golics today. That's all that counts. I get a chance to talk to the Golics, father and son, which is, Mike, my youngest just started his radio career in West Palm Beach. So now I feel like how you are when you got your son doing the same thing that you did, which is fun. So I'm in the same boat now with a 22-year-old, but I'm doing okay. Hanging in there pretty good. Good to be on.
Now you have to do a show with your son, right? I mean, that's going to be the next
I'm going to have to go on there one of these days and give him a little break. He's doing West Palm 4 to 6 with Tony Rizzo's kid, the guy from Cleveland in West Palm Beach. Just got the job. He started the day after Labor Day, 22 years of age, 3 months out of Wisconsin. So good for him. Good for him.
The one thing I'll say, Chris, is don't expect your son to show you that love like that, oh, you've had decades of experience. My son just started ripping me right away when we started doing the show together. So
very good.
No love.
Very good.
You got to keep him honest.
You got to keep him honest. Colin, I've been talking to him every day just to tell him where I think, what the lead of the show is. How do you get the baseball in? Because obviously it's football territory, West Palm Beach. Should you leave with Mike Norville and Napier with the 2 Florida and Florida State teams? So I'm trying to give him a little guidance, but you got to leave him alone. You got to let him, as you know, Mike, you got to let your son do his own thing, find his own way.
Yep.
So in the same year, we've got LeBron James and his son getting ready to play together right now. We've got the Russo family getting ready to take over sports media here as well. So
take it easy. Take it easy.
Listen, you know what? It's a pretty cool experience again.
Every day, and I got him in West Palm Beach, Florida. Bonnie and LeBron. That is a little different. And you too. All the stuff that you've done over the years, I mean, the both of you, so not on that level yet. But the radio is still fun for me. The radio is still fun. And if the radio is still fun, if they're going to pay to do it, you might as well do it, right? If the radio is still fun.
Exactly. No, good work if you can get it, no doubt. Doggy, lots we want to get you with, but big one coming up tonight. We were talking about Thursday night football a little bit earlier here. Giants-Cowboys, a matchup tailor-made for you and Stephen A. On First Take to certainly come off and react to here. Have you given up on the Cowboys yet for this season? Where are you at on this team right now?
No, I haven't given up on them. Plus, the division may not be quite as good. The Eagles are lucky to have beaten the Saints the other day. I know Washington's played really well, but I mean, I got to see Daniels is going to be good, but I'm not sure if that's sustainable with their defense. And the Giants are the Giants. No, I am not giving up on the Cowboys by any stretch of the imagination. They play well against the Giants, as you know. They've owned them. Last year in New York, they killed them 40. Week 1, they destroyed them. Yep. The 5.5 is the line. I think the Giants will play, better tonight. Neighbors is excellent. Giants could have won the last 2 games. Obviously, they beat the Browns, could have beaten Washington. It's a short week, so Dallas has got to come a long way to go play a game in 3 days after they played late Sunday afternoon. I think this will be a very competitive game tonight. I really do. But I do not think the Cowboys, and they got a hard schedule. They got the San Franciscos and the Detroits, and they got a hard schedule. And, it looks like you guys know about this defense. You can run all over them. And Baltimore did. Saints did. But I don't think the Cowboys are forgotten about. I think they'll be in the mix for a playoff spot the last 5-6 games of the year. So, no, I do not think the Cowboys are done. It's an interesting game tonight because the Giants are due to play better against them. The Cowboys last year walked in here and embarrassed them. Neighbors is great. He's great. And, Jones played pretty well the last couple of weeks. So I think and the Giant defense played pretty well against Cleveland. Now, they got a strip sack. Burns was a factor. They stopped them twice late in the game, once on downs. I think this would be a close game tonight. Close game. I would take Dallas for a close game.
Do you think either one of these coaches or both are more on the hot seat than the other?
That's a good question, Mike. I would definitely say McCarthy, but Jones keeps coaches there forever. So it's hard to say. I don't know what his mindset is. He kept Garrett there for years. Wade Phillips there a long time. He doesn't like to have the big name coach. Belichick looms. So, I mean, from that standpoint, you would wonder if they had a bad year. He's 82 years of age. He's got Belichick sitting there. If he would do that, I don't think Dable's in any trouble. I think Mara doesn't want to go through another coaching change. I think that he's going to keep Shane there. And if you're bringing Belichick in, then you're sort of hurting Shane because Belichick's going to want some control over the personnel. I think Dable is safer than McCarthy. The McCarthy thing is they have a bad year. Jerry cannot bring him back with a bad year. Now, does he bring in Belichick? He usually does not like to bring in the big name coaches. Chan Gailey, Wade Phillips, Dave Campo, Garrett, McCarthy. He doesn't like to bring in he brought Parcells in because he wanted to get that stadium built. And he wanted to make sure he had a little leverage with that new stadium. And he knew Parcells would give him a little credibility. But I don't know about the Belichick thing. I do think Belichick will coach. I probably the wheels would have to come off Dallas for him to get that chance to coach the Cowboys. But I wouldn't rule it out. But it's hard to predict Jerry Jones. It's hard to predict him. Don't know. I would have fired him last year after losing whatever he lost with Belichick available. And he didn't do it. So that's why it's hard to predict.
I think I agree with you. And I think a lot of people thought that might have been the case last year. They also thought it might have been the case. I mean, we basically went into this entire season talking about the NFC East sort of on the hot seat. Where are you at with Nick Sirianni? I thought it was really strange last week. The Eagles go and get a win against the Saints team that had been red hot. Saquon Barkley looks great. But I felt like a lot of people still came off that game asking questions about Nick Sirianni and what exactly his role on that Eagles team is. So where are you with him?
Well, I thought the field goal situation last week was absolutely ridiculous. At the end of the half, he goes for it on fourth down. Maybe he gets an extra play. You got to get the 3 points. Then he goes for it again in a fourth down in the third quarter. And then I thought the worst thing, with a 7-6 lead with 7 minutes left, he tries to kick a 60-yard field goal, and then he misses it and he gives the Saints the ball at midfield. I mean, and then the Saints go right down and score the touchdown. They were bailed out in that game. 3rd and 16. Goddard's open. They had a busted coverage, I guess, Mike, you guys would know better than me why he was so open. Sirianni gets a little defensive with that Philadelphia fan base and those writers. He did after that week 2 game with the pass to Barkley, which I did not have a problem with. Barkley's got to catch that. The game is over if he catches it. And he didn't, so you can second guess him all day. Yeah, I would not. That owner is going to be difficult. I think he survived by the chinny chin chin last year after that finish when they were 10-1 and they got killed in Tampa and everything else. I think that and Hurts has faltered. A lot of turnovers. My God. So I wouldn't own a house if I was he in Philadelphia either. He's going to survive the year. But if they don't have a big year, I think he is in the crosshairs as well. So, I don't follow him on a day in, day out basis. I know the coordinator situation. Now he brings more in, Steichen left. Obviously, Hurts hasn't been quite as good. I didn't like the play calls last week. They're lucky they're not 1-2. I got to see more before I get a read on the Eagles and Sirianni. But I'd be a little worried.
So over in the AFC North, when Cincinnati was 0-2, that was not shocking because Zach Taylor was 1-9 in his first 2 games of the season for he'd been there. But then they give up 38 to Washington, lose 38-33. They're 0-3. So what's more surprising to you, Cincinnati being 0-3 or Pittsburgh being 3-0?
I would say Cincinnati, Mike. Pittsburgh was going to play Atlanta, Rusty Cousins, Bo Nix, and, the Chargers. I know they won their first 2 games, but, everybody knew they didn't have a lot of offense. So I'm not stunned, and he's a great coach. He's a good coach, and, you figured he got a good defense. You figured they could win I figured they beat Denver. They could beat Atlanta. That was a close game, and they had a chance to beat the Chargers. So I'm a little bit more surprised by Cincinnati, especially when you consider the fact, look who they lost to. They lost 2 games at home. They lost to Jacoby Brissett, and they lost to a young quarterback who is playing his 3rd game in the NFL. And they were an 8-point favorite. And they had their health, and they were 0-2 going into the game which you think would produce a little sense of urgency. So I'm definitely more surprised by Cincinnati. What is the statistic? Well, there are 5 teams since 1979 that were 0-3 that have made the playoffs, and only one team, is that what it is, guys? One team since 2000 who started 0-3 and got in. Yeah. Now, remember, there's more playoff teams now. They added the extra team, and Baltimore and Cleveland are also both 1-2. So, and Pittsburgh's, did you see this Pittsburgh second half of the schedule? I mean, they don't play a divisional game until like November 17th. And in the process, they also play Kansas City in there. So their second half is really hard. So the Bengals are not out of it. I would think they could beat the Panthers. But yes, I'm shocked they're 0-3. I thought they win a couple. I thought they'd be 2-1. So I'm shocked they're 0-3. And look how many teams they knocked. Look how many people they knocked out with the survivor pools. Oh my God, they killed people with the survivor pools. Twice. Yeah. If you brought back in, they killed you again against Washington.
Yeah, it really is. The Bengals have cost so many people money and opportunity to start this season. There's no doubt. Doggy, while we've got you here, we've talked a lot about NFL, but we mentioned people can always check you out on High Heat on the MLB Network. We're getting ready to start the postseason there, and I'm curious for you. You're such a great historian of all these sports. You got an appreciation for the guys that have come before. This Shohei Ohtani season that we've seen now, stacked on top of what we already saw, how far up are you willing to put him already on the list of the greatest players that you've ever seen?
Well, think about it for one. Let's just do the season first. 50 homers and 50 stolen bases. Now, if you go back and look at the guys who have hit the 50 homers, there's 50 guys who have hit 50 homers. There's only a couple of them who would have had the ability to steal 50 bases. Willie Mays in 1955 hit 52 home runs. He had 24 stolen bases. Now, if Willie wanted to, he was 24 years old. If Willie wanted to, he could have stolen the 50 bases. The following year, he stole 40. So if Willie knew that the 50 steals was a big deal, he would have done it. Now, in those days, in the 50s, nobody's stealing bases. Mantle in 56 hit 56 homers, hit 56 homers. He had 17 steals. He was 25. He may have been able to do it too, because Mantle was fast. So in essence, if you think of it from that standpoint, there's only 2 guys in the history of baseball who could have done the 50 stolen base part of the 50 homers. So that's number 1. Number 2, now I don't make a big deal like everybody else did of the last game that he played against Miami when he was 6 for 6, because that last 3-run homer, he hit off a positional player, and it was 17-3. Right. Okay? In the top of the 9th inning. He should not have batted in the top of the 9th inning. Betston was out of the game. Freeman was out of the game. And, to put him in there for a 3-run homer, that's just padding the stats. So that bothered me a little bit. But you can't dispute the greatness of the game. 5 for 5, 2 homers and 7 RBIs if you eliminate the last homer and the last 3 RBIs. So that's number 3. Number 4, listen, you got to put the pitching in. I don't think he's Ruth. If you look at Ruth, 93 wins as a pitcher. He had a 2.24 lifetime ERA. Now, it's a different era, not a lot of offense. 2.24 ERA. And he had the World Series record for consecutive innings without giving up a run, 29 2/3, until Whitey Ford broke it in 1961. So he would have gone to the Hall of Fame as a pitcher. He didn't want to pitch. So then he hits, and he hit 714 home runs. And you could say, well, so everybody did. No. He out-homered the league. Nobody hit as many home runs as he did. So I still think, I know people bring up, well, no African-Americans pre-1947. I can't evaluate it that way, because then I'm doing it. I can't do it that way, because then Jackie Robinson, what do I do with him in 1947 when he won the Rookie of the Year? He was the only black player playing. So what do I do with him? That doesn't count either. I mean, so I can't evaluate. So if I forget that, Ruth offensively, he's the greatest. He's a lifetime 341 hitter. Ohtani's 275. So if I do it from that standpoint, I still put Ruth number 1 all time. But at the end of the day, with what Ohtani's going to probably be able to do when he pitches, when he gets healthy next year, you're going to put him up there based on the fact he can do both. You're going to put him up there as, what, top 5? in the history of the sport.
I think at the very least. I think at the very least. It's incredible. Doggy, we could talk to you all day. We appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time today.
You know how much I love you, Mr. Golic Sr. You know how much I love you.
Thank you, sir.
You know it.
Love you the same, bud.
See you later. Okay.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
Welcome back to Gojo and Golic. Jesse Cofield, Mike Golic Jr. and Mike Golic Sr. Fellas, Caitlin Clark, rookie year, it is over, okay? Fever eliminated by the Sun last night, and she did deliver, though. A myriad stats. See, that sounds so wrong. I'm sorry, it sounds terrible. I can't even say it with a straight face. A myriad stats, no, a myriad of stats. AP style book, be damned. But yeah, the Caitlin Clark rookie season, absolutely incredible. So many stats, can't even name them all. And she had a huge impact on viewership, on merch sales, on everything. Overall, fellas, I think we all agree her rookie season won for the books.
Yeah, Dad, I think after a slow start where a lot of people saw her adjusting to the physicality of the game, certainly coming off of a college season the way that all the WNBA players do, with zero break in between, what she ended up doing, especially after the Olympic break, where she now finished this season the leader in assists per game, the league leader in 3 points, the first in points per game by a rookie, field goals made by a rookie, first rookie with a triple-double in league history, broke the single season assist record, broke the single game assist record, most points by a rookie ever, most assists by a rookie ever, most threes by a rookie ever. It goes on and on, Dad. It felt like every week between her and A'ja Wilson, we were watching records being broken. And so now as this gets done, yeah, we can put a bow saying one of the greatest college players that we've ever seen, especially in recent history, and one who has helped revolutionize the coverage of the sport, absolutely lived up to the billing of what we expected for her coming into this season.
Yeah, and even after the game, when one of the reporters asked her to grade her season, she said she has a tough time grading herself, but she feels like she just scratched the surface. And I do think she handled the on-court stuff extremely well. And And I know there was a lot made of it, of vet saying stuff to her or being physical with her. And as I tried to say, that happens in all sports. When a high draft pick or a much ballyhooed player, young player comes into the league, vets want to knock that player down mentally and physically. They want to keep that, and they want to say, no, not yet. Not yet. So this happens in all leagues, not just in the WNBA. But she definitely got knocked around. It was a physical a game against her, technical fouls against her. And you know what? She just took it. She got up. She fired back sometimes. But one thing I appreciated, you know me again, in post-game pressers and even pregame, she always took the high road and basically said it was the game. It was the game. It was the game, and never lashed out at anybody. So as I said, all high-profile rookies will get this type of treatment from veterans in a league, and I thought she grew from it. I thought the Olympic break definitely did her well, and I thought she handled everything really well.
Yeah, I think the game last night was sort of a microcosm of that. You saw some hard fouls in that, but they had said, talking to Caitlin before the game, she's like, hey, this is playoff basketball. I understand. Right. You have to expect the whistle's going to get swallowed. And it did. Still, really compelling game. We talked about this Fever team missing out on the chance to host a home game in the playoffs because in the WNBA, in the first round, it's a 3-game series. You have the home team, the higher-rated seed, hosting the first 2 games, and the Sun get it done on their home court. Fever made it tough down the stretch. I mean, Aaliyah Boston went for 16 and 19 rebounds in this game in a losing effort. Caitlin Clark, 25, 9, and 6, 9 assists and 6 rebounds. She became just the second rookie in WNBA history, I believe, to have a 25, 5, and 5 postseason game, joining her idol Maya Moore. So it was a really entertaining game last night. But ultimately, this Connecticut Sun team, we talked about some of the stars for them. Alyssa Thomas, Dejanay Carrington got her Most Improved Player of the Year award in the lead into this series. It was all good there, Dad, but we also saw the other side of this, and the part that's going to need some parsing as we get to the offseason now for the WNBA, because Caitlin Clark, with all of the increase in eyeballs on this sport for her, we talked about the uptick in viewership, Fever attendance up 319%, WNBA merch sales up 450%, the TV viewership numbers that we've seen all throughout the year has also come with a darker, more insidious side to this. You had Alyssa Thomas after the game last night say in the press conference, in my 11-year career, I have never experienced the racial comments from the Indiana Fever fan base like this. It's unacceptable, honestly. There's no place for it. We've been professional throughout this whole thing, but I've never been called the things that I've been called on social media. And Dad, it's easy, I think, for some people, especially the older guard, to say, hey, it's social media, just stay off it. We saw those comments come up with Kathy Engelbert, the commissioner of the WNBA, on a news appearance that was widely criticized by players around the league. This is still their life, and that's part of the place that they exist. And I think as we go forward, there have been a lot of good things that have come with this experience, but we've also seen plenty of people use Caitlin Clark as the banner for hate speech that really has to be policed. If there's a way, the W has got to explore options to make sure that they are protecting their players as this league experiences growth that we know can sometimes have negative consequences.
No, listen, I agree. With the good comes the bad. With exposure comes bad exposure as well. So it's part of the growth pattern for any league, and the WNBA is growing by leaps and bounds. So with the good is going to come the bad. I'm not sure how the league can protect the players from the social media angst of the world, because you know what's out there. I mean, the muscle-bound typers out there are by far and away the more. Am I trying to say it without getting myself into trouble? They
Don't say it.
I'll save you from yourself here, Dad, and just say that I know there aren't always ways to police this stuff, and these are problems that a lot of leagues deal with. But again, this league in particular, because it is so diverse, because it's a league led by women and predominantly black women, does have a bit of a different charge to it, dealing with the racism and the misogyny that can come from people doing this. I don't know if this is something Caitlin will address in the offseason. I said during the season, I could understand her wanting to put down her head and say, I've got so much to focus on from a basketball standpoint at this point, Jesse, that I don't necessarily want to invite all this at a time period where she's already trying to juggle so much, but I do wonder if there's going to have to at some point this offseason be something that comes from her to try and quell a bit of this on behalf of the other women in this league.
Well, I get what you're trying to say, Senior, and I think the head coach of the Suns, Stephanie White, did a pretty good job. She was speaking after the game, said a couple things. So she said, like, people in the media have to do a better job of not allowing trolls and social media to become the story and frame the narrative. So I guess maybe some of trying to do that. And to be clear, the WNBA did release a statement on Wednesday night also saying that the league is actively monitoring threat-related activity and will involve law enforcement as necessary. So it sounds like some of this stuff is not just your basic, like, Twitter trolls. It's getting a little bit more venomous than that, which, of course, I mean, Twitter trolls in general, the venom, the vitriol in social media is disgusting, and we should all disown it. But then also moving to that next level of, like, making credible threats, what the hell are we doing?
And I think that's a great thing to point out, Jesse, is, Dad, these have also been women who have lived on the internet for a long time. And if you've got a woman who works in sports or in really an industry and she's online, I encourage you to take a look at their mentions on any given post because it's a hellscape. So the baseline of awful that they are used to, in order for it to rise so far above it that Alyssa Thomas would feel compelled to mention this in a post-game press conference, I do think is noteworthy.
I think it's going to be difficult for reporters to do, Jesse, what you said, because it's about grabbing the headline and grabbing the clicks. And we are such a social media-centric society now that I don't know. Now, the league saying that they will look at viable threats and turn them in, that should be the starter. I mean, when you have somebody threatening somebody to try and find out who that person is and take the appropriate action against that person. But overall, I don't know how much can be done when it's just people, posting things. And it is. And you're right, Mike. It's easy for the old guard to say ignore it because we didn't have it, where you guys live it now. So you're not going to ignore it. It's just going to be how you deal with it.
Well, and I think it's not just online. Like I saw Nick Wright retweeting this morning. There were people in arena that were saying hateful things towards some of the black players on the Connecticut Sun. There were people that were conducting themselves in a way that offline, in real life, with their names and faces attached to it, was a problem. Yeah. And I don't know what the answer is right now, but I know that given the growth and given that this is the feedback from players, the W owes it to the constituency of this league to try and explore some ways to help this offseason. All right, time to finish off the show the way we always do. This, that, the third. 3 quick stories to send you into the rest of the day. Make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review us, leave us a 5-star rating, and check us out live Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKings Network, our YouTube channel, Samsung TV Plus, and a myriad places on various streaming platforms that you can all enjoy. If you miss us live in any of those spots, make sure you check us and our great guests. Thank you to Seahawks running back Zach Charbonnet, who joined us earlier in the first hour of the show, as well as NBC Sports college football insider Nicole Arbach, and SiriusXM Radio Zone, First Take's very own Christopher Mad Dog Russo. You missed any of those, check them out wherever you get our podcast or right here on YouTube as soon as we get done with the show. And guys, let's get to this. A legendary NBA career comes to an end. Former MVP Derrick Rose announced that he's retiring after 16 seasons in the NBA, Dad. He announced this on his social media on Thursday morning. Also took out full-paged ads. You'd appreciate this. In the local newspapers in the 6 cities that he played for, Chicago, New York, Cleveland, Minneapolis, Detroit, and Memphis, to thank each fan base. I feel like that is one of the last places that print media really makes hay, is when players retire and do the full-page thank you ad here. That always hits home for me.
Yeah, that is true. Not just doing it on social media, but the actual print paper. Yeah, you mentioned 6 teams. 5 were just kind of shorter stops, 2 or 1 or 2 or 3 years. It was obviously made with the Bulls, the youngest MVP ever. Then just kind of started nomading around to different teams. Finish up with Memphis, but what a long career. 2008, he got into the league, and 2024 being his last year. That's a long career.
It is, and Derrick Rose is one of the ultimate what-ifs, right? Became the youngest NBA MVP in league history as a 22-year-old in a season where I know there were some people that thought that was kind of a punishment for LeBron, who should have won the MVP that year.
Right.
But then the knee injury in the 2012 playoffs ultimately, Dad, changed the trajectory of the career of one of the most explosive athletes I have ever seen. There are very few people like Russell Westbrook reminds me close in terms of just the explosive, dynamic athleticism. But what a finisher Derrick Rose was for that time period. He was such a special case, and that ACL unfortunately really changed everything for him. Was still able to go and be a veteran piece on some of these teams and help out as his career went along, but it was just never quite the same after that, unfortunately.
It's amazing how an injury can change the direction, and when you're playing in sports, you deal with injuries, but how it can affect some, but the same ACL tear will heal up on somebody else better, and they'll be able to resume a great career. But this one definitely seemed to knock him down to what we thought he could have been. But still, a hell of a career.
Absolutely incredible career for him. So happy trails and enjoy retirement, Derrick Rose. Thank you for all you gave the game. Speaking of giving something to the game, Jesse, let's get to that. Shohei Ohtani gave a lot this season, and now apparently people are going to try and get some in return.
Yeah, Mr. 50-50 has set another crazy baseline. So the ball that he hit that put him in the 50-50 club is set to be bid on. Now, if you'll recall, the person that got this ball was apparently offered $300,000 to return it. They said no, left the ballpark with it. The starting bid now, it's going to be auctioned off, is $500,000, okay? And if that, $500,000 sounds like a lot of money. If you don't want to get into the bidding war with it, you could just buy it outright now for $4.5 million. So if anyone's interested, them's the facts.
Yeah, we got modern-day King Midas on our hands, Dad. It seems like everything Shohei touches continues to turn to gold, including this incredibly historic home run ball.
Yeah, did you see the buyout option? Someone could just buy it flat out for $4.5 million. That's
what Jesse just said.
I'm sorry. But also, if the bidding reaches $3 million by October 9th, the option to purchase privately will no longer be available. So if it hits $3 million in the bidding, you can't go ahead and buy it out for what Jesse said at $4.5 million. Would you just give the ball to him? Would you have just given the ball back to him, and whatever he wanted to give you, a signed bat, a signed glove? Maybe, who knows? The dude's making $70 million a year, or eventually he's going to go as he gets to $700 million. Maybe he gives you, maybe he sees what the ball is bid for, and maybe he offers more than that. Or would you have just given it to him?
Absolutely not. Would just have given it to him. And yeah, he can buy it now for $4.5 million.
Wow.
Yeah, I say he's got it like that. I mean, if he really wants it. Listen, I want to believe that as someone that's, we all have a background in athletics. I want to believe that the former athlete in me would want to see Shohei get to hold on to this memento and keepsake of a season unlike any other that we've ever seen. But man, when you see the kind of, like, I don't understand it. I don't understand the memorabilia market and how it has so many people willing to spend this much money on stuff like a baseball that Shohei Ohtani hit. It does not compute in my brain that someone would spend $4.5 million on this. But if you've got $4.5 million to spend on this baseball, that amount of money probably doesn't mean the same thing to you that it does to me. But that being said, if that kind of money's out there, I'd be hard-pressed to probably not try and go get a little bit of it myself.
Don't you think he's going to anonymously buy it? I think 100p. This is going to get bought for $4.5 million, and it's going to be through an LLC, and it's going to be Shohei.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, the guy that probably would have bought it before, his translator, is no longer in the mix for this, so that would have been an easy place to get this through.
True.
Yeah. I maybe that's just the fan to player relationship that you just got a 50-50. Here's your ball. I'll take a bat or a glove or whatever you want to give me. Maybe that's just the old school in me, and the new school is go ahead. I'm not going to sit here and rip the guy for putting it on auction. Hey, do your thing, and if you want to make your money, make your money.
Yeah, I feel like it costs so much, like that old school like relationship for the love of the game. Kind of a little bit of that has lost its luster now when it costs you $300 to get in the door between like food and drink and how much the tickets cost and everything. Like I'm kind of like, if you're playing like that, then this is a business and you can buy this ball back for me for market value.
Yep. The standard is the standard now, and the price has gone way up on this. So that is Major League Baseball. Jesse, let's get to the third. We talked about the WNBA before, and while we don't know for sure if last night was the final end of the chapter for Diana Taurasi, it certainly felt like it.
Yeah, it did certainly feel like it. So she might have played her last game, Gojo, and there was an article written about it, and you, in particular, have some beef with how the wording went with this one. Can you explain to us what really irked you about this?
Yeah, so listen, this is supposed to be like a wonderful moment for everybody to sit here and wax poetic about what Diana Taurasi has meant to the league. She fouled out with 2 minutes and 34 seconds last night as the Mercury lost to the Minnesota Lynx. By the way, Nafisa Collier, an absolute animal in this game, dropping the 40 burger on their heads to send her packing and send her home. But Diana Taurasi is the WNBA's all-time leading scorer. She came into the league and has won 6 Olympic gold medals, 3 WNBA championships, 3 NCAA titles, was the 2009 MVP of the WNBA, and was all WNBA first team 10 times. She's one of the greatest, if not the greatest player to ever come through this league. And instead, what I have to wake up to this morning is this in the article written on ESPN.com about Diana Taurasi's prolific career, where they said Taurasi started her pro career in 2004. 4 years after before the first iPhone was released, and stuck around until cars could drive themselves, making the magical land of 2004 sound like it was at the first World's Fair, where eventually we were going to have flying cars and the joys of the internet. My God, Dad, I know how you feel now. I felt ancient reading this.
Yeah, imagine how older people feel when she's got to feel ancient. That is. But you know what? That's what you do in sports. You make comparisons. How many times we see, well, back when they started, the price of gas was this, and it's the price of gas now. So she just got thrown into the modern era of that. I would doubt she comes back. In all honesty, I think she'll call it a wrap, but she never really said. And as I've always said, you never listen to a player right after the season about what they're going to do. Let them kind of settle into their off season before they decide. But boy, what a hell of a career. I mean, both in college and the WNBA, just one of the greatest ever.
One of the greatest to ever do it, who did not deserve the indignity of having the iPhone weaponized against them right now. I understand we got to sell the new one out there, but doesn't mean we need to bring up the one with the home button or the iPod, whatever else they want to use to baselessly attack Diana and those of us in my generation and Jesse's generation. If you want to support our cause, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review the show. Leave it a 5-star rating, and don't remind me how old I am in that rating. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you tomorrow.